This is where the batteries have been living for, unfortunately, a few months. They're not sitting on the ground. They are being held up the ground by about half a foot. So their voltage isn't draining. I've checked it with a multimeter. If I already recorded that, cut to that footage. This is the front left, 96.2. This is the front right, that is 96.2. And then on the big battery pack, 102.0.
192.
Okay, so since this has double the number of cells than one of those packs have, that was what, 192.0. Divide by 2, that's 96 volts, saying all the cell groups have about the same voltage, so we haven't deviated really. How long have they been sitting?
Year.
Yeah, they've been a little bit over a year, probably. Let's see, that was what, 192 plus 2 plus 0.2, that's 384.4 volts. How many cells? 12 here, which means there's another 12, that's 24. That means total there's 48 modules, which means each module has on average 8 volts, and then since each module has 2 cells in it, that means each cell is at 4.00 volts. The max charge of these, I think, is 4.2. We're in safe range though. Actually, we can compare that against whatever voltage we had last time. So while the Nissan Leaf had one big battery box, when you tear open that battery box, there are 3 big modules. One of those modules is right here, it's that one, and the other one, the second one, is down below, and the third one is basically the size of both of these 2 modules together, and that's sitting right here. These pieces of acrylic are just making sure that the batteries are protected so the dust isn't sitting and collecting on top of it. Nothing gets dropped onto the cells that are in the inside. Just make sure that everything is nice and safe. I know a lot of people are really worried about this stuff, but you can quite literally just, these things are so protected on the inside. Even when they're disassembled, I can do that because I know everything is well protected. I wouldn't go, you know, touching terminals to terminals, but I know over here, everything is nice and covered. I can wave my arm around, flop around. It's gonna be fine. Where it is dangerous to touch, places like right underneath battery terminal right here, that you don't want to touch. Of course, that is isolated from these rails and everything, but there's still a good voltage potential between there and there. That's connector 3, connector 2, terminal T2. Yeah, I have everything labeled that way, so when we put the pack together and everything, we know things are in the right spot. And if we don't know something where it's supposed to be, multimeter is our best friend there. We can measure the voltage potential from one point to the next, see how they add up. So yeah, this is around 200 volts, this pack's around 100, this pack's around 100. So we're really working with 400 volts here, which is like almost 4 times more than regular house voltage. Closer to 3 actually, but when these things are fully charged, it's closer to 4. In short, engineers do a pretty good job that you don't, you know, electrocute yourself. Anyway, so let's go. That's everything. I want to take one final check over, and then I want to test with the multimeter, just make sure we don't have anything, you know, backwards or whatnot. And then we can get the tester out. Connection comes in, goes through contactor, goes through resistor, blah, 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 goes through contactor, it goes through this line, through this battery, goes through the battery, through the disconnect cable, is disconnected, then goes into this pack, comes out this pack, goes through this pack, comes back out here, goes through that contactor, and then back through the initial plug. I want to test half the pack first.
You got a T2, T1, T2.
191.1-ish, 2-ish. 95.9 or 96.0. 96.0 or 95.9. Okay, so dead the same. That's good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I want to test through these 2 packs. I'm gonna open up one again. 192.0 steady. Okay, so there's maybe around a 1 volt difference between the major pack and the combination of these 2. So it will have to be doing some cell rebalancing. I say plug in our major disconnect and test at the end there. You see we're coming in here, going through this contactor, which is open right now, so no
Okay.
power through. And it's coming all the way through and then back through this one, which is open, so there's nothing coming through.
Okay.
So we need the test is from that side to that side. Main connector is disconnected. This isn't going to do anything. So now, one hand, there we go, they're 382. So now if the contactor's turned on,
Well run.
yes, we'll get rid of all this. Oh, God, I hate that thing so much. Anyway. All I'm doing here is I'm taking the OBD2 connector and I'm connecting it to the CAN lines on the Nissan Leaf connector. Additionally, I'm also connecting the grounds and the positive 12 volts to each other. We have a breadboard here that merges both pins 4 and 5 that are 12 volts that are coming from the power supply. And then we have our two black lines from the OBD2 port being merged together into the 3 ground lines in here, and then high and low connected. So that's everything now. So now we just gotta give it 12 volts and see what happens. So we got our little red light here. And let's see what the app says.
Flashing green. Steady green.
You can see now we're pulling around 1 watt. So we're doing something. Okay, there we go. I didn't realize that I had to press load right here, and now it actually connects. I didn't actually have to connect it to Bluetooth. For some reason, the Bluetooth low energy just connects, and you can see every single time that this guy, the little green light flashes, there's a little yellow bar that down here that cycles over. Yeah, so we can see that up here that we're running at 382 volts, which is what we measured with the multimeter, which is perfect. State of charge is 60%, which is about what we left it before. Can't quite remember, somewhere around there. And so the reason why I was noticing that we have a giant peak right here is because the connector for the battery is disconnected. Now that that's plugged in, let's take a look. You can see that we're getting our temperature readings here. That's nice. Yeah, we can see our state of health is right around 78%, which before we left it with 10 out of 12 bars, so that's around 83. And so now that we're at around 78, for sitting for around 2 years for it losing around 5% health, that's actually fairly fine. Of course, it hasn't been used, so we'll have to see about that. Yeah, so we can see state of health 77%. But what I want to see is I want to see the individual cell health. I can read some data, but I'm not reading the individual cell voltages. So the reason why I reopened up the pack here is because this is the page that's supposed to say all the individual cell voltages. Yet, as you can see, it says 000 for the min, average, and max, which, well, that's not right. Yet, I know I'm getting all the other data. You can see that here. So the CAN lines are talking. That's fine. Yet, something is up. It's annoying. I don't know anything about the cell voltages. I didn't see any settings for that. I'm gonna disconnect the Leaf power. Oh, it says, where you select the model year, scroll up the list where 2010 should be, and there should be a BMS only mode. Okay, so instead of selecting the year... Okay, so when configuring the battery, and you have the 24 kilowatt version right here, instead of saying the year of the battery, which mine is 2015, all the way up there's a BMS option. So now if we go back... that didn't help.
You disconnected.
Oh, you're right, I did totally turn off the... Yep, you're right, you're right. Click, see that, the multi...
Jumping. Your screen flashed.
Okay, there we go, 61.4. Now we're getting voltages. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, well the good thing is, you can see that it's trying to cell balance now. If you can tell, this guy right here is either, I think this is the rear pack, and these are the 2 front packs. So they're a little off. But since we just applied power on boot, it's actually managing the cell voltages right now. So you can actually see in red, those are the ones that are going through a resistor right now, and it's dropping their voltage. So that's quite interesting. We can watch that. So right now we're at a voltage difference of 29 millivolts, and we should see the voltage drop. Yeah, you can see that we're at 38.208. So we'll come back in a little bit and we'll see what that's at. That's weird. It's not reading the overall battery stuff now though. It's reading the state of charge. Oh no, you can see, yeah, no, you can see that we're totally pulling an amp. Okay, here we go. So now we can see the max cell voltage difference, 29 millivolts, which is actually pretty good. I mean, we're gonna get a little bit smaller than that here, hopefully in a minute. But yeah, look at those big different pack voltage drops. Look at that.
It's looking good.
No, it's bad. So I guess this page only works when you have it set to the correct model year. That's weird. Anyway, I guess you can see most of the stuff here though. Okay, so let's give this a few minutes and then let's come back. put some duct tape over this so nothing gets in there and touches anything, because I do have the main plug plugged back in. And you can see that in here, jumper cables that you can use for regular breadboards, they fit perfectly on those pins, so you can just plug them right in. I have these 3 that are grounds, go to the ground line, and these 2 other ones that go to positive go here. I have my power supply set to 12 volts-ish, come down here, go into the breadboard, and then I have these 2 lines, which is my CAN high and CAN low. Those go to the OBD2 adapter, and that will sync to my phone and everything like that. Dala has a GitHub of how to make your own connector. I believe he also has a link to the version that you can buy. I have the connector, but it's on the old wiring harness. I'm gonna have to go and cut off basically for this. But for right now, this is sufficient for me. I'm just gonna leave this thing plugged in to do cell balancing, because cell balancing, as far as I'm aware, it does it 2 different times. One is that after you finish charging the vehicle, it will then automatically start the cell balance. And then 2 is after a power cycle, it will start cell balancing, which is what we did here. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it like this. You can see compared to last time, they have changed a little bit. We've actually increased to 33 millivolts different from what I think was 27. It's been around an hour and a half, I think. Now this looks quite like a stark difference, but that's because I have it on the most sensitive version. You can see that it's very little up there, but you can see this is the 2 smaller packs and that's the bigger pack, or vice versa. But if I zoom in, yeah. But the reason why there's big difference here is because these guys right here are still the original, and that these are still coming down, and that just leads to a different average cell difference. So it's getting better, even though the numbers are getting worse. But yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on this, let this cell balance for, I don't know, as long as it's gonna take. I'm just gonna leave it over for maybe like 2 days. It's probably more than it needs, but I wanna make sure it's all good before we start pulling some power through this to that. So in the next video of this project, I'm going to pull out this guy, the zombie verter, and now that I know that the battery pack is pretty safe and that it's fixing itself basically, we can start wiring up this guy and these 2 together, see if we can start getting this thing to give us some movement, because that will really get us into some crazy activities that'll be fun. But yeah, right now, instead of having to check all your cell balances and everything manually, you can do it this way. This is around 30 bucks right here, and then the app is another 15, so it's about $45 to test it and everything. There is another route that you can get a CAN hat for like a Raspberry Pi or something, and I believe there is a GitHub project about how to communicate to the battery pack doing that. But when you add up the cost of Raspberry Pi and the CAN hat, it's a decent bit more than just going this route, and this you can use for other vehicles and stuff. Obviously you can use Raspberry Pi for other stuff as well, but you know, just for sake of easiness here, this is the cheapest, best way. And of course I'll link all the stuff like the 3D printed adapter, the link for the adapter for this, and all the other documentation of having to find the pinout of this and that and all that stuff. Most of it is from the Open Inverter forum and wiki, and so I hope that helps you figure out how to do this and get a little bit more excited for plugging this guy in, seeing that thing spin. So I unplugged the OBD2 connector off from the battery pack down here. Before, we just had some of these jumper wires plugged into there, and that's because we salvaged the battery connector from the old Nissan Leaf wiring harness that's over there. And this simply just kind of lines up, and then you twist it on, and that plugs everything in the way it's supposed to. However, we noticed that there's an issue. Now when you slide this off, and you read from top down, it says right here, this top right pin is pin 1, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, from right to left, like that. And also on the back of this, it says 5 here, 1 there, and so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reading it from that way, from left to right, top down. Now, this numbering is the same as what it says on the inside of the pins here. I can't take a photo that shows those pins because it's too close, but if we go over to the online diagram, this is from Dala's battery emulator, so we're looking at the 2013 to 2023 model of the Nissan Leaf battery pack. However, if you notice something, it's mirrored and upside down. So pins 1 and 2 here are actually pins 4 and 5. So yeah, because it's mirrored this way, and our plug was also upside down in the Leaf pack. So if we look at it like this, you can see it's flipped. So it's saying that these two, right, on this one it says it's 1, 2, but it's actually 1, 2. Now you might think, oh, that's correct, it's just that one line is incorrect, but he's reading it as if you're placing it like this, which is, this is actually pin 5 in the top right, which it says is pin 1. If you read it like this, now it's correct. Even though his numbers are wrong, it's the same, the pattern is correct as if you're looking from the outside of the connector, even though the OEM numbers are actually the other direction than this says. Just a note in case you go and try to do this yourself. There's the inverter connector, here's the PDM connector. Notice the PDM connector is the same style connector as the BMS connector that goes here in front of the battery.